Hello everyone, I'm Paladin, and this video will be the first in my Tyre wear series. At first, I'd like to thank Perre, who gave me the idea to do this series, but secondly, I want to thank my brother. He drew this beautiful picture of me and designed my new channel icon and channel banner based on this picture. Make sure to check out Perre, links to his social media in the description, and make sure to check out my brother. He's right now doing an advent calendar video series where you can see him draw his cartoon style figures every day. So yeah, leave a subscription and let him know that Paladin sent you. In this series I want to investigate 5 main things. Firstly, how do different cars affect tire wear? Secondly, how do different tracks affect tire wear? Then what does tire wear percentage change? Where does tire wear occur on track? And how can you prevent tire wear? The main focus of this video is the first question. How do different cars affect tire wear? Right now there are 12 different cars and 8 different tire manufacturers in the game. I go over them in order that free play mode provides in the game. First there's the Pichinio with the Dingo Racing tire. Then the Feather with the same tire. After that comes the Bonk, loved and hated by many, with the Monumental tires. Then Loose Cannon with Good Days Weasels. Then the Agitator with Trencher Dirt Devil tires. Or Dirt Devil Trencher, I'm not quite sure about that. The Vost is the first of 3 cars that raises the Michigan tire. The Osprey, my favorite car, with the Fever Zone tires. Then the Brusso with the Orsini Cobra, and then Panther and Conquest both with Michigan tires. After that comes the 80s GP Mantra, who races with Good Days Weasels, and the newest and latest car, the Storm with Ardent Noise. In principle, we have several measurements at our disposal to investigate tire wear. We can compare the wear by itself, and we can use lap times. The first question I asked myself concerning tire wear was, is tire wear independent from fuel consumption? To answer this question, I drove 10 laps in the Osprey at Ranford with fuel consumption and tire wear each at 100%, and after that only with 100% tire wear. Let's look at the results. At first, the lap times. And here we can see a problem, because due to fuel running out on the beginning of the 10th lap, this lap time is so high that everything appears nearly equal. So let's zoom in for further inspection. Here we can see that the lap times are pretty similar to one another. Apart from lap 8, where I misjudged the second turn in point of the chicane and sent myself into the wall. The lap times show some deviation, but I will discuss this later in more detail. We can now take a look at how the tire wear developed over these 10 laps. In case you are wondering how the tire wear was from round to round, this is the diagram you're looking for. If you take a closer look now at the tire development, we can see that my car running out of fuel results in a lower wear of the tires and therefore affecting the results of the tire wear. This brings me to the conclusion that fuel consumption has no effect on the tire wear itself, but running out of fuel does have an effect. Therefore my next test will all be with only tire wear and not with fuel consumption activated. At first I raced all cars around Ranford with 100% tire wear for 10 laps. After that I raced a control group without tire wear. The control group is necessary because I can't drive every car equally good, and driving multiple laps leads to a good group of lap times which can be compared to the lap times with the tire wear activated. At first, we can take a look at the fastest lap I drove with all the cars without tire in blue and with tire wear in red. We can see that nothing really changes. Interesting to note is that my fastest lap in each car with tire wear activated is always slower than laps without tire wear. I'm not fully sure if this is something systematically or if it's random, but it makes sense when you consider that you lose a little bit of lap time overall with tire wear. But also you can make the argument that this low wear wouldn't have this much of an impact on lap times, therefore it comes down to the human error. As I said, I'm not quite sure on that yet, but it's interesting to note. With this out of the way, let's take a look at how the lap times progress over the duration of a race with Tyre activated. The diagram I show you now is driven with the Panther on 100% Tyre wear on Renford for 10 laps. And in blue you see the lap times I have driven without Tyre wear. The blue line right there in the middle is the average lap time without Tyre wear. The red columns are the lap times driven with Tyre wear. This time there is no need for an average lap time because, well, as you can see, the lap time doesn't really stay the same overall. In fact, it rises somewhat exponentially, and we will come back to this in a moment. Let's first take a look at how the Tyre wear progressed. On the left side we see the remaining tire life over the 10 laps I have driven, and on the right side we see the tire wear per lap. There are some things that are important and interesting here. Although on first glance the progression of the tire wear seems linear, it is actually not. You can see a small deviation from the linear function I tried to fit to this graph. This gets confirmed when you look over to the right. If this was truly linear, the difference in tire wear from one lap to another would stay roughly the same. Of course, the human element is involved here too. This leads to some deviation of tire wear over a few laps, as you can see. But especially at the end of the 10 laps, the tire wear graph shows a clear upward trend. There it goes from 10 to 12 and 13 at the last lap. This observation coincides with a rising in lap times. Alright, so turns out tire wear is not strictly linear and it has a direct effect on lap time. What a surprise! But what was also very surprising for me is that I always had the impression that tire wear and fuel behave linear. To an extent this may also be true for tire wear, but my measurements showed that this is not the case. In a race situation this is not as relevant, to be honest, because you are making quick decisions. It is not important to have the right mathematical equation in mind, but to have a good understanding on when to pit and how fast you are going to be. So the next step will be looking into the behavior of the other cars and see if we can confirm this behavior or if we can debunk it. Let's see. I will now go over the cars quickly and briefly. If you want to look further into a diagram, you can just pause, observe it yourself, take your time, but this video is really getting a long one, so I want to finish it a little bit quicker. So let's first talk about the Pichinio. The Pichinio took me a while to get right because honestly, as you can see with the deviation of the lap times without wear in blue, it's not this good of a car with me. I had a good fast lap, but also a few not so good laps, and yeah, it took me like 2 or 3 tries to get it right without a big driving mistake there. But the Pichinio also shows the basic equation, so to say, on what we observed with Panther. Next car, Perre. Same principle here, although I have to say Perre is maybe a better car for me. I can handle it very well. You see some deviation in the laps, but no big deal. Now the big boy bonk. The bonk is really hard to settle, and I will go over this one in a bit more detail, because as you can see, the lap times are getting increasingly slower, but then lap 8 and 9 are really slow because, well, the tires were gone. But in lap 10 there is an interesting thing, because I drove the 10th lap with only, I think, like 4 tire remaining. Yes, 4 tire remaining. And it is a funny thing, because while you are racing, you are gaining experience, and this experience helps you keeping it cleaner on the track. So the 10th lap here with the bonk is driven faster again. This might also coincide with the model we developed not being correct, but I think when you get like the human element, all the deviations out of the way, this will resolve itself. So the lap times after you run out of fuel stay roughly the same. Loose cannon, no big deal. Follows the same trend as we saw with Panther. Same thing for, I think, Agitator. Bit more deviation there because I suck with this car. Voss, same story, no big deal. I'm a little bit better with that one, that's why you are seeing a clearer trend. This brings me also to the conclusion that we are doing it kind of right. Osprey, my favorite car. It's funny because the standard deviation for the lap times without wear is smallest in Osprey, so I have this statistical analysis that this is my best car, or the one I can drive most consistently, yes. Yeah, but same trend here. Russo, interesting thing from the diagrams shown, I can't make an assumption now, and I will talk about the Brusso and another car at the end. Again, Panther we already talked about, so you know the drill. Conquest, same thing as with Panther, similar curve, and also the same thing with the Mantra. Now let's take a look at Storm, and let's also take a look at the Brusso together, because if you compare these two, you will notice kind of the same pattern. And at first I was thinking, well, I'm just shit with Storm, and I'm also, to be honest, not the best one with Brusso, but I think it's one of my stronger cars, so I was a little bit surprised. And I did Brusso a second time, and I still noticed the same pattern. And the pattern is that I can't compare these two to the other patterns that I drove. And this bothered me a bit, and so I used a different statistical analysis tool or graphic analysis tool called Origin. Alright, and here we are in Origin. I have two fit models already in all of my three graphs here. The normal line here is this fit model shown here, the exponential, and the dashed line here, and for Storm here and for Brusso here is a different model that has this formula. And at first let's go over the Panther. Panther, the exponential fit model, describes the data really well. There is a good fit here, and yeah, we see that this upward trend in lap time is described perfectly with this fit model. If we use the second fit model, the molecular, that is supposed to look a bit like this, so with like a steep incline and then a saturation, we see that this fit model doesn't apply good to our data given. In fact, this fit right here isn't really working good. If I would redo all the mathematics behind it, it wouldn't make a logical sense. When I click fitting, there is no real result here. So this line is just the indicator, therefore, that this is not working. But if we look over to Storm, we see now that the dashed line describes the data a little bit better, or a full bit better than our normal line here being our exponential fit. And this exponential fit right here gives the same failure here as the molecular fit does here. So this data for the Storm does follow a completely different pattern in lap time development over tire wear or over laps than it does with the Panther. And same thing for Bruiser, really. The lap time development isn't that exaggerated, so both the dashed line and the normal line, both fit models are a bit different or a bit the same. But yeah, the biggest thing right here is that although the exponential model seems to fit for most of the cars, as I tried to point it out, Picinio for example, so this is lap time, this is laps. This is the exponential model, as you can see here in this graph. Same story really, and same for like the Feather, for Loose Cannon. Bonk is a whole different story, because for this plateau right here, I will go over this another time. So Agitator, really same story. Lost, yeah, as I already talked to you about. This right here is all this, but Bruiser and Storm are really the exception to the rule. It is kind of interesting that the latest cars in the game, being Bruiser and Storm, follow a different pattern than the other cars in the game. And so the last fact I want to talk about is that when you think about it, and let's take the Panther diagram for this example. When you think about it, this exponential curve is a good indicator for the lap time, but it doesn't really tell the story, because this is how it should behave. And if you think about it, it's getting clear, because if you are driving here without tires left, so with 0 tires, you won't get like what, maybe the next lap will be like a 30, 32 or something like this up here. So you won't get a 32-second lap. That doesn't make sense. You will get, in fact, like a 29 again, or then a 28.5 if you are good with low tires, or then a 30 maybe if you are bad, or something like this. So this graph fits the data really well, but only to an extent. And the different model, the molecular model, doesn't fit the data well, but it would tell the story maybe if you just take into consideration lap 7, 8, 9, 10 and then the rest. So it could be possible that our real fit model is something of both ways, where you have like exponential rise in the beginning and then the decline in the end. Alright, enough for now. Let's go to a conclusion. So we found out that fuel doesn't affect tire wear, only running out of fuel does. Tire wear has an effect on lap time, but the change in lap time due to tire wear can't be determined correctly right now. For this, there are further tests necessary. Bruiser and Storm seem to follow a different tire model than all the other cars, as I tried to explain with the Origin software. So, that's all for this video. I am planning right now to do a video on the new patch with new track and new car, just a short one, not like this. And yeah, let's see what the new patch brings. And until this, don't forget to subscribe to my brother, watch his videos, check out Speedworld. Really, thanks to them I can add great music to my videos. And yeah, hope you have good races and see you around.